So, Stephen D here on Pure 24/7 Radio, and we are here for our segment about rural missions. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Stephen.
Pleasure to have you back on as always.
Thank you, thank you. Week number 8. How exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to getting into this morning's conversation, but it's not just you who's on this chat. Who else are we joined by?
So I thought I'd bring a friend in with me today. So one of my colleagues. So why don't you introduce yourself?
My name's Stephi Scott. As Bob said, I work with him at Rural Missions. A little bit about me: I'm the missional network lead at Rural Missions, and yeah, it's a fun job to work alongside Bob in supporting the rural church.
Cool. So what would like a day-to-day life look like for you in your job?
Well, every day is slightly different, so it's not necessarily the easiest thing to answer. But essentially, the heart of my role is to explore how we can bring the church leaders, ministers, followers of Jesus together and form small little networks and groups across the country and online to build connection, to build relationship, and to mutually support each other on the calling God has given us in our lives and our ministry.
Cool. And that brings us rather nicely on what we are talking about this week. So, Bob, do you want to talk? What are we going to talk about this week?
Yeah, I thought it'd be great to have Steffi here just to share some insights because we've talked a little over the weeks that it can feel quite isolating if you're in a rural community, and even more so if you are a vicar or a minister and you've got 7 or 8 churches that you're looking after, not just in one village, but sometimes spread over a 15-mile radius. So I thought it'd be great to look at what does connection look like and how can we support those that are supporting rural communities.
Yeah, that's it's important. We've talked a lot about how rural areas can experience a lot of, as you say, that isolation. It's a common thing, and so the solution is to get people together. But those people that are working hard to bring those people together, it can actually feel even more lonely, can't it?
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I know our heart is really to help people to not feel like they're on their own. And only recently, I was talking to a church leader and they said it's been so good because I thought it was just us. I thought it was just me doing this stuff. And actually, just up the road, there is somebody else doing the business of ministry. And it's not just those church leaders, it's Betty, who's 80, going, it's not just me in this village. Actually, the next village along has got a Christian as well. And how do we love, support, encourage not just our neighbours, but those a bit further down the trail as well?
Yeah. So how exactly would you go about that? So let's say a church is in a rural area, rural setting, trying to reach out to their local community, and how might they come across some support for themselves from others doing a similar thing, as you say, up the road? Or what might that look like?
So this is what I do. So again, we acknowledge that it is difficult and it is lonely and isolating. So we are trying to find people who are craving for that connection with other people and forming small groups. We call them gatherings, and it's to bring like-minded people together, ultimately, people who also understand some of the challenges you're going through, and about creating space then specifically for you to share the burdens that you're carrying, because ministry is hard, and it's people don't understand it unless you're in it, but also to then be able to celebrate with each other what's going well, and to maybe even grieve with each other about the challenges and the struggles that we're facing. And we're finding that just helping people to understand that they're not alone and there's connection there. It's a really beautiful thing that people are going to experience. And let's be honest, when we look at scripture and we look at all the different characters in it, it's very rare you find a story of anyone traveling or doing mission or ministry on their own. And often in rural churches, resources, finances are limited. So there's often only one member of staff or one minister, one person on the team. So they are doing it on their own. They might have some support, people who help on the Sundays or at different points, but they're the one in the trenches Monday to Sunday, doing it alone. So our heart at Rural Missions is to create space for like-minded people to come together to do that.
Do you know, I'd be curious, how far apart might people be? So if you've got someone who's ministering in their local area, how far might they be from someone else doing a similar thing? I mean, just like roughly, what sort of distance might we be talking about there, Steffi?
How long's a piece of string? That's the it's got not really an answer for you, but so ultimately in the rural communities you can be. So I think in my context, there's I live in a fairly small rural town, and there's another town 3 miles away. I have no connection with anybody in that town. So you can be pretty close to each other and not have any connection. And in terms of how we think about creating our networks, we're not going to put a hard and fast rule on the geographic size of a network, because in some areas there's a high density of churches and ministers and people who are exploring mission, and actually you could have loads of villages and towns all within a 15-20 mile radius, and you've got a whole collection of people. But then actually if you go to deepest darkest Scotland, you might have 30-40 miles between towns and villages with a mountain in between. So it's you couldn't have necessarily the same number of people in the same size geographical area. But hopefully the heart is also to bring people together who are from similar contexts. So the part of the country I'm in, the Cotswolds, each village are all going to be uniquely different, but they're all going to share some of the similar aspects of the culture. Houses look the same, jobs are kind of the same, people have grown up in the same way. So you can have some connection and relate to each other with a shared cultural experience. So actually, when I meet with another person who's serving in missions work in their rural town, we have some connection and understanding of what each other are facing. And I can then speak into their context. They can speak into mine. And we find that really helpful, that you've got this shared experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And actually there is something in that we've talked previously, Stephen, that if you're in a village, you might only have a bus every other day that comes into your village. And so sometimes that connection can be really difficult because of proximity and what transport links look like. But by being on Pure 24/7 radio, I've made a great connection up in deepest, brightest Scotland. Then
Brightest,
it's
of
not
course.
always darkest up there, but up in Scotland, there is Pure's very own Dan Rouse. And he heard at my very first interview. And within that week, we were having a chat online, sharing stories, sharing connection, bringing encouragement to one another. We are about 250 miles apart, but actually there is a real space for that online coming together. So we create spaces online and in person because actually those shared stories build confidence. I know a friend of mine recently got diagnosed with autism, and he didn't know that he knew anyone else who was autistic. And so he was trying to navigate, what does this look like for me? And all of a sudden, as he shared his diagnosis, several of his friends said, "Oh, I'm autistic too, and I've got a diagnosis." And that shared connection, that shared story, whilst it's not the spiritual one that we would be looking at as rural missions, actually it built his confidence. He's more happy that he's not just been pinned with a label, but actually there is something in this that he can now talk to people. He can bring encouragement from one another. And we like to do that in every single setting where we are. Like, if you know a vegan, you know they're vegan because they want to share their story. They want to bring that encouragement to you. And I think it's got to be the same in rural communities, that even a general church member has an opportunity to be able to share faith with their friends. And so what would it look like to create space that we can connect and love? And network is a very businessy sounding word, but it's just, let's connect with one another, share stories, and build some confidence in who we are and what we're called to do.
Yeah, it's very true. That shared connection, shared stories is so important. So, I mean, in a number of different industries and workforces, people will kind of be all hard and tough, and they come across someone who's experienced some of the same things as them, and they'll kind of open up a bit, and they'll relax a bit because they're with someone who knows what they're going through, and it's so important. You mentioned autism, you mentioned obviously in church settings, but this is so very true for every aspect of life, that we all come across people, and when those shared stories, shared experiences come out, we're able to find that common ground to be able to communicate better, but then also able to encourage. And so I suppose the question I then have is, how do you connect people? How do you know they've got that shared story, that shared connection there? What might that how would you connect someone? So I mean, we talked about geographically, but how does that shared story connection, how do you pick up, they've got a similar thing here? How do you would you connect the two?
Well, I'll jump in there with, as a follower of Jesus, I believe that we all have the shared connection of the person of Jesus. So we can start there. Ultimately, that if you're following Jesus, I'm following the same person as you, hopefully. Let's be honest, it's hopefully. And I believe that actually we all have, as followers of Jesus, the same calling to go and share the love of Jesus. So that's the initial connection point that we have, is that Raw Missions, we believe that every believer is got a calling from God to go and share the hope that they have in whatever way that looks like for them. And again, we don't come in with prescribed answers and things you have to do. We have lots of answers and lots of ideas, but God might be calling you to something specific for your context. But we start at that point of that we all share that same calling to take the love of Jesus into our communities. And then I guess then that's the shared story that we're hoping to then keep sharing with everybody and invite more people in. And I think then sometimes it's the cultural needs of the community in your area, which are also big connections. I'm sure the same issues in my town are the same issues they're facing in the town down the road, or at least similar issues and the similar demographics of people. So we have a shared culture in a sense. I know as across Britain, our culture is fairly the same compared to the rest of the world, but actually within each area, where I live is very different to where Bob lives, and I'm sure very different to where you live. And just the word we use for bread roll, Bob, is very different, isn't it? So just
it's a cob. It's a cob. Simple as.
It's a bread roll. So there you go. We've also got some differences in culture. And that's a really silly one, but actually it's sometimes I think we're connected by the love that we have for Jesus, and then the mission he has given to us to go and to share the good news, to share his life, his hope, his joy with people. And hopefully as Christians, we then also have a heart for our community. And actually, if you're just down the road, so if someone down the road from me, I hope they have a heart for the people of the Cotswolds too. So we're both united in our desire to see the lives change of the people in our community. I don't know if that's fully answered your question, but that's where I start. The start is Jesus. The answer is always Jesus.
Yeah. I suppose another aspect might be, supposing someone was leading one church in their community. They're having a really hard time. They need to connect with some other people, but someone else is leading multiple churches, because that's often very common. I've seen it a lot, and you've mentioned it quite a few times. There'll be more than one church they'll be leading over the course of many weeks, popping in and out. That's a whole different ball game, as it were. So would those two people be able to connect and encourage one another, or would they need someone who's also leading many churches? I guess something like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes there is a place for skill sets playing well together. So if you're trying to find some support and you've never led multiple areas, then having someone that's done similar would be quite helpful. But only last weekend, we ran an in-person network down in Locks Lane, sort of Salisbury way. And it started small. There's about 8 people there. And actually, they were from quite a breadth of background and experience. But it was that connection of someone going, would you be interested in finding a space to chat and to talk this through? And the way that we build community, the way that our networks tend to operate, are because people hear about it and are personally invited. Like, we sent out adverts to the diocese, to the district, to the circuits, to people in our database that might possibly live near the network that we were doing. And a blanket thing is all right, but it's in the one-to-one conversations and someone hearing your story, someone taking it seriously, that change starts to happen. And actually there is something beautiful in being able to have that shared view. Um, so not that long ago, I we were at a conference called Hand in Hand, where you guys were as well, and you were broadcasting from. And just a simple conversation I had with a friend from way back when. She said, "Oh, we're really struggling with our website, and we're not sure what on earth to do." And I said, "Well, I'm glad that you've shared what your need is, because I know someone that could help you to do that." And actually, Rural Mission stepped in and helped them build a new website. We've trained them how to do it, and just now passed it over to them and released them. But that's because there was connection. We then used our network, our influence, and went, how do we do this together? And only a couple of days ago, I had the same conversation with a different church that said, "Oh, our website's really poor." And I said, "Well, I know someone that can help." And it is that. It is how do we then draw others into the journey? Because rural missions, we believe we've got a few answers. We haven't got that many, but we've got a heart that wants to share, to resource, to encourage, to inspire, to walk alongside people. And in those spaces that we're not good, then we will point you to people that are good. And it's only when you connect with others that you start to save time and energy. Like, how many churches do I know that have sent Sunday school plans to one another? Or I found this great resource. My WhatsApp goes off at least a couple of times a week with, "Oh, have you seen this video I've found? Or have you seen this app that I found?" And that's what community, that's what connection looks like. And we just want to be part of that journeying with people and going, how do we join you together to go do what you do, but maybe slightly better?
It's interesting. Something you mentioned from those stories is sometimes people have a need, but unless someone actually knows what that need is, they can't really help. So you have to you need to put out there that you have this need in order for someone to actually fulfill it. People can get very frustrated with this need that they have and no one's helping, but actually no one knows to help. And there's people out there willing and ready to help. So a big part of what I guess this whole connecting people will accomplish and achieve is actually finding those needs and actually seeing them met quite easily just by simply connecting people, which is what you said from those stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not that long ago, our friends at Scripture Union, they had a problem that the building they have in Milton Keynes had subsidence, and they needed to raise £280,000 or something like that. And they could have just sat on top of that and tried to find a way to figure it all out. But they said, "We've got this need. Will anyone support us on that need?" I know from my conversations with friends that work there, I used to work at Scripture Union. They do a great work. They had two people phone up and the debt was written off. Like, that is A, because they shared, B, because people caught the vision of what Scripture Union were up to and wanted to be behind that to make sure it continues, and C, because they're connecting with people and it's the networks that they're in that go, we can meet that need, and there you go. Like, if anyone's interested, we have needs at Rural Missions, feel free to get in touch. We'd always happily take 280,000, but I'm sure Pure 24/7, you've got some needs. But it's not till you voice that people go, I can help with that.
Yeah.
And actually, that is the key. Stewardship recently released their generosity report. Well, it's quite a few months ago now, but it showed that one of the main reasons people don't give to your cause, to your charity, is because you've not asked them.
Simple.
People don't know till you ask. Simple
Yeah.
as.
And so when people are able to connect, they're able to actually present their needs. I'm wondering if actually, is there ever in what you do, Steffi, have you ever seen people reluctant to connect with others, like they want to do it alone?
Yes, I'm trying to think how I word this. I think you've got to get to a point where you acknowledge that actually I can't do this on my own, or actually I don't have all the answers. And I speak to so many church leaders and people in churches who, on one hand, they're telling me how hard it is, how all the problems they've got. And then you ask them, hey, what are you trying to do? And they're like, oh, well, we're doing these things. We've always done them. And it's like, and they don't want any help. And that's fine. We're not going to push our way into that. But so there's always got to be a recognition that you need help. So I think for me, I probably don't tend to see people come into networks until they've already got to that point of recognizing that, oh, actually, maybe it'll be quite good to see what other people are doing or to learn from others. So I actually also want to frame it. These networks aren't just for people who need answers and need help, but actually they work because it's a shared experience thing, especially if you are already further down the road of being experienced in what you're doing as a church or as an individual in your mission. We want you to part of this too, because we want to learn from your insight and your wisdom. But I'm just thinking that especially on our online network, people come and join, and being online, it's really easy just to sit back and not engage and not say anything. I think just the fact they've turned up shows courage and a recognition that maybe not a reluctancy that they need help, but to then actually get asked or say, this is my issue or my problem. And I often find this, the moment someone does have the confidence to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to resolve this issue, or I'm really struggling in this area. As soon as one person opens up, suddenly one by one, everyone else suddenly says, oh yeah, me too. And you can see it as that it go around the room of people being like, oh, it is not just me. I'm not the only one struggling here. And then sometimes, hopefully, there's someone who's been like, yeah, I've been there, and this is what I tried to get out of it. And then we have a discussion, a conversation of what that might look like. And everyone's context is slightly different. So what worked for one church or one person might not be the same for the other, but we try and prayerfully together kind of unpack what were the core ideas behind the specific thing they did, and what can you take away and try yourself. For me, it's a big part of this. It's what can you do? What can you take away from what other people are doing? So often, Bob's probably heard this many times as well. We spoke to these people who have no resources, no time, no effort, no energy to put in the effort. And they're like, well, we can't do that thing the big church are doing down the road. We haven't got the same amount of people. It's really good. I'd like to be able to do that, but we can't open a soup kitchen and feed thousands of people, partly because there isn't thousands of people in our community, but we also haven't got the resources and the time. So then my question is, well, what about that is it you actually find inspiring and like? And it's got to come down to, well, we're feeding hungry people. Okay, well, can you start by feeding one hungry person then? Because if you've got your own kitchen and you've got food, you probably could share food with one person. So it's trying to work out what's the value behind the practical thing we're doing, and can I shape that to then do something in my own context? And this is where the networks are really good, because it's that open discussion to kind of like workshop some of those ideas with each other and with people who've tried different things. And it's quite exciting when people really open up.
There is a flip side of the coin as well, that you sometimes come across people that feel like they've got it all sorted for themselves. And so we've talked previously, we offer tailored consultation days where we'll come and journey with the church and help them to become more missional through an interactive session. And actually, I've spoke to several church leaders that say, oh, no, we're already good at doing mission. We don't need you. And I just want to rag them around and go, you're not all sorted. Like, we might believe that we are. And I used to be part of a church of, I think it's about 3,000 people now, called Trent Vineyard. And I remember talking to the church leaders one day saying, oh, I wonder if we could do this and explore this particular option. And because it wasn't just an internal, this is how we do it, it didn't really get past. It was, well, no, we're pretty self-sufficient, thank you, so we don't need to partner on this. I probably shouldn't have named the church there, but hey-ho, I've said it now. But we can just become insularized. So let's join together, let's connect with one another, because together we're stronger.
Together we're strong. But I also want to emphasize that our networks aren't just for the paid professional. They're not just for the full-time ministry person. Actually, it's for anyone who's got a heart to explore. And as Bob just said, many times churches think they're already doing a great job, or I find it quite often that I meet people who aren't vicars or ministers or church leaders, and they just go to that church, but they have a heart to share, their passion, which might be mission and Jesus and his love and his hope. But the support from the church isn't there, and they're isolated in the sense of no one else has got the same vision as them in that moment. The networks can be a great place for you if you're that person, because it can then connect you with people outside of your organization, outside of your direct community, and give you fresh ideas, and again let you know that you're not on your own. Other people want to do this too. And that's also a beautiful thing about our tailor made, isn't it, Bob? I think is that because we try and encourage it to be like a whole church event, people who are in that community to all engage in the process. It means that the ideas come from not just the person at the top, but it comes from the congregation and empowers them that actually they too also have a part to play in all of this. If we leave it to the professionals, they're already busy people. They've got a lot of work to do as it is. But actually we can step into all the mission God is calling us to do when we all kind of pick up that mantle and take it seriously.
Good stuff. So I think what we're picking up from this is connecting, whether you think you've got it all together, whether you need help, connecting with others in similar situations is really helpful. And so with that in mind, how might people who are tuning in, who are listening, how might people find out more and connect with you guys in terms of networking with other people in similar situations? Where might they go?
Very simple answer, the one that I share. I think every time we've spoken, head to ruralmissions.org.uk. All the information about our networks, about our consultation days, or even if you just want to pick up the phone and chat with someone and just go, is there any way you can help? Or have you got a thought about this or an idea? Our phone number's there, our email's there. Drop us a message, drop us a call. We'd love to connect and go, what can we do together? What can we do to support, love, and encourage you? So ruralmissions.org.uk.
And I'm going to have to say /networks because that's my job. So if you want to see where we have any in-person gatherings happening, booked in the diary coming up, there's a whole page on the website now where it shows all of them, and plus the online one. And if you happen to not notice one near you there, we'd love for you to get in touch with us, and we'd love to work with you to get an in-person gathering and network starting to take shape in your area. So there's limited on the website currently, but we have a heart and a vision to see networks all over, every inch of the countryside covered in some network in some way.
Excellent. ruralmissions.org.uk, that's the place to be, /networks, to find out more about this specific week's conversation. So thank you so much for joining us, Bob Goody from Rural Missions and Steffi Scott. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Here at Pure 247 Radio, we've had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with some amazing stories.
I was about 5k off the coast paddling, and I was watching this storm on the land, and it literally hit a mountain. And rather than just going over the top of it, just turned and just came straight at me. You can't stay on the board in that instance, so I literally am jumping off the back of the board. I've got everything tethered down on the board, and I'm just holding on to the back of the board.
As I walked in, there was a fight going on the floor. There was a police sergeant sailing over the desk to help with restraining somebody, and the doors were clanging shut, all the big metal gates, and there were alarms going off and radios, and I felt this most enormous peace come over me, because I realised that this is where God wanted me to spend my career, behind bars.
It was like a baptism of fire, and it was like the most socially deprived council wards in Britain, and then we were going into schools, and then kids were coming to the gigs but then knocking on my door at night, and I was out there playing football till 11:30 p.m. at night, 12 o'clock, feeding kids, running youth clubs.
If you've missed an inspiring conversation and want to catch up, or you'd like to revisit a brilliant interview, you can. Our interviews are available on YouTube and podcast, so you can always catch up anytime you like. Search for Pure 247 Radio wherever you get your podcasts, or find our YouTube channel at Pure 247 Radio, or head over to www.pure247radio.org/catch up.